23rd of August 2021, I asked my friend what Flutter was about. The thing is, I had heard so much about Flutter, right? And what had happened was, in our conversation, he had told me that he had deployed a website, I think, using Flutter on perhaps Netlify or something, right? So I was kind of wondering, like, what's this about? Can I jump into it? And the reason why I was kind of inquisitive about Flutter, right, was because I think it was because I had bugs or issues with React Native, right? So the problem that I had was that React Native kind of uses a lot of third-party dependencies, and so sometimes if the dependency has issues and you are really desperate for that dependence, you're pretty stuck for months, right? So I thought of moving on, right? And I was like, let me learn this Flutter thing, right? So he told me that he had learned Flutter in about a week. So I mean, that was kind of motivational for me. And I thought that I could learn Flutter in a week, but it turns out that I couldn't. I should say though, this guy is kind of smarter than me. Like, academically, he was, he had better marks, better maths marks than me. So
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
I mean, it depends from person to person, right? So for me, I learned Flutter in 2 weeks. And if you want to find out if I really mastered it in 2 weeks, watch till the end of the video, right? So basically, first day, right? Day number one, I looked into the documentation. If I'm not mistaken, some of the things that I will say might not be 100% accurate, but I'm trying my best to give you all the details, right, as much as I can remember. So I went into a bit of the documentation, looked into some YouTube videos, and I started, setting up, right? I set it up, installed my Flutter, the environment variables and all those things, right? And I'm gonna link the video that I learned to do that down in the description, right? So that was day number one, and day number two was before you learn Flutter, remember Flutter is a framework for Dart, and Dart is a programming language, so that pretty much means that Flutter is built on top of Dart, right? So day number two was I went and started to learn about Dart, the programming language. Before you jump into Flutter, you should know some Dart, right? So I went and did my research on Dart, read documentations, took some videos on Dart. Some of them with Dart and Flutter, if I'm not mistaken, right? Dartpad, programmed on Dartpad, which is like a website in IDE online. And that was day number two. And so day number one and day number two, that was basically it, right? And I think also day number three, I was doing more of Dart, just trying to understand the programming language. Now I should say though, for me, I've had so much experience in programming. I did JavaScript, like I said, React, I was dealing with React and stuff like that, right? So I did understand a lot of concepts. So for me to even learn that, I kind of felt like it was a waste of time, but it really wasn't. And I learned that as I learned more and more. So I mean, I do regret not really diving deeper into that, but with some experience that I had from other languages, I guess that was quite a good advantage for me. So if you're someone who's really starting new, I don't really expect you to spend 2 or 3 days learning a programming language, right? And I won't lie to you, I am still learning that, right? So okay, so number three was I tried to watch day number four, I tried to watch YouTube videos of Flutter, right? But I wasn't really satisfied with what I was getting, so I went over to Skillshare. If you guys don't know what Skillshare is, it's basically a platform where people can create courses, and you have like a subscription fee which you pay like monthly or yearly or something like that, right? I guess you get to choose. So I went over to Skillshare. I started watching a tutorial or a course which I'll link down in the description. This was really the best course that I think I could have ever found. And I watched this course day in, day out, up to like day 10 or something, right? And as I was watching, I would program like what the person was programming, right? So I wasn't just watching, you know, there's no television. In programming, you really have to do the practicals, right? So as I watched, I would like copy the stuff, copy the stuff, copy the stuff, etc. and so forth, right? But to tell you the truth, that isn't really enough to master a programming language, right? So from day 11 to like day 14, or I mean day 12, right? Day 10, or yeah, day 11 to day 12, I started to learn Firebase. So the reason why I learned Flutter was because I had like projects in mind, and I didn't learn Flutter for the sake of knowing it. I learned Flutter to actually build something, and I did. And I had a date to launch that product or project, right? So when you learn these things, you know, at least you have a project in mind sometimes, because this will really motivate you to put in the hours. So I went on and I learned Firebase, Flutter Firebase. Looked at the documentation, Firebase authentication. I think the course I'll also link it down in the description. And I think it's a 3-hour course if I'm not mistaken. So I watched that, and I learned how to connect everything, right? And that was day 11 to day 12, right? And then came day 13 to day 14. That's when I went back to YouTube. So what you wanna do is you wanna, try to clone some apps, right? Maybe it's Spotify, maybe it's YouTube or something like that, right? So that was what I did. I watched those tutorials. I tried to clone some apps and stuff like that, right? And once I was kind of satisfied, I was like, okay, cool. Let me bounce into my project. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Uh, those 14 days, I can pretty much say yes, I did learn the basics, but I wasn't really satisfied, or the knowledge that I learned wasn't really enough to build a world class application, right? I mean, it's good. I mean, it's enough to build maybe like a blog or something like that, right? But it wasn't really enough. And the reason why I say this is that I am still learning Flutter up to now. I don't know, guys. Like, some people will agree with me, you can never really master a programming language. There's always something to learn, or a new way of doing something. But it was enough to build, a small project, but not really like a world-class project, right? And how many hours did I put into this? Well, I think I put in like 16 hours a day, guys. I'm really one of those people. If 16 is an exaggeration, maybe let's just say 12 hours a day. So from morning, maybe from like 8 a.m. to like, I don't know, midnight, or like 10 or 11. I'll just be grinding, right? That includes breaks in between, right? So breaks are important, but yeah, I did put in a lot of hours into this, into mastering this language, or perhaps not really mastering, right? So um it might take a month, or it might take 2 months, depending on the time frame that you've set out for yourself. I thought that I would finish it in like a week, but I didn't. At the end of the day, I just didn't learn Flutter. I had to learn some other third-party dependencies that I found there. For example, like for like maths and stuff, right? Uh, so yeah, guys, so I did put in the work, and I built some clone apps and stuff like that, right? So what can you take away from this? Well, one of the most important things, guys, to know is that you cannot master a programming language in a week or 2 weeks, right? Like, you cannot, even in years, you might not master it, but you can learn some information, to get you out of the gates, some information to get you a job, right? Some information to build some basic apps, but you're gonna need Google next to you, right? You're gonna need that Stack Overflow tab next to you. You're gonna need that pub.div thing, and the documentation section of that dependency next to you. So a lot of practice is what's needed to really master a language. And so did those 2 weeks really help? Yeah, they helped a lot. I mean, I'm very comfortable with my Flutter skills after those 2 weeks, right? But at the end of the day, I will not lie to you guys. I still depend on going back and forth with some documentation from that, going back and forth with YouTube, and which is okay, guys. In the software programming mode, it is okay to go to Stack Overflow. It is okay to head over to YouTube, because you cannot master it all. Like, it's just way too much, right? Or maybe you can, but it's just way too much, and sometimes you really need help, and you have to humble yourself um to search on the internet on how to do certain things, right? Yeah. So thank you guys for watching. This was my first video. If you watched till the end, I really appreciate you. Please subscribe, turn on the notification button. This is a new channel. If you don't know what we are about, we are all about programming, things related to programming. So please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.